Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome to the stage, Emily Bingham.
So there comes a time in every young, kinky woman's life when she needs to face the question, am I or am I not going to ride this fucking machine tonight? I was faced with this important dilemma at a BDSM conference a couple of years ago because kinky people are basically just geeks with scarier toys and a higher percentage of leather and latex in their costumes. So I was going to this conference mostly to go and see the classes. I wanted to learn about kinky stuff, but also because I had literally been roped into being part of the opening ceremony's performance. And I was kind of uncomfortable with this because I'm a hardcore introvert. But over the years, I have learned that I'm really into these big, bold, exciting experiences. So I learned to create this persona, who is the extroverted part of me, and I send her off on photo shoots and do these crazy things. And I learned to call her Miranda. So that's kind of weird, but it works for me. So I sent Miranda to go do this performance. So I go to the classes during the day as myself, and I'm having fun, and then I put on my big, bold persona and my sexy outfit, and I go to the place where the opening ceremonies are happening. So on one side of the curtain, there's about 1,000 people watching the people on stage getting thanked for putting together this conference. And on the other side of the curtain, there's me, 4 other mostly naked women, and 3 guys that are tying us to this giant machine. So they had put together 3 steel girders, like the things that you would build houses with, and they had put them on swivels. So one was on the top, and it swiveled around, and there was one lady tied in the middle of that, and then there was 2 on each side of that piece of steel, and they were also on swivels, so it made this giant sexy mobile. And I was one of the ladies that was on the outside. So my friend tied me into this beautiful chest harness and this beautiful hip harness, and then created this elaborate thing with my wrists and my ankles so that I could pull on them, and I was kind of like a naked puppet up in the air. And so I'm laying there on the ground under this giant machine, like hoping that it's not gonna fall on me and kill me. And the music swells, the curtain opens, everyone turns and they're watching us, and I feel the machine go up, and suddenly we're raising 30 or 40 feet up in the air. And that felt safe to me. That was great. I was far away from the thousands of people that were all swelling into this dungeon now. And some of them were watching us up here doing our artistic thing, like hanging from the ceiling. But most of them are like, fuck yeah, there's a St. Andrew's cross and a spanking bench, and everyone's like getting naked and beating each other up, and I'm watching it from 40 feet up going, yeah, that's pretty fun. And so I'm up there spinning around, and then the moment that I'm dreading the most happens. The song ends, and I can feel the machine starting to come down, and we're getting closer. And people are supposed to be moving away from this little circle where we're coming down, but they're not. And the people who aren't moving away are the single guys that are already half naked, and they're kind of getting really excited, and it kind of feels like I'm a piece of meat, and they're the hungry sharks. And so I'm watching them circle around, and the machine goes down, and instantly they're all trying to touch us. And the guy that tied me up is keeping them away and gets me untied. And so I'm free. And that's kind of scary because Miranda has left me. I'm there naked without my protective persona, and I have to make it across the dungeon. I am wearing nothing but lacy underpants that are not doing anything to protect my modesty and knee-high boots. And there's these sharky single guys all around trying to touch me, and I'm just like, no, singular focus. I'm gonna get across the dungeon. I'm gonna get my dress. And so I start the journey across. I get over there, I put on my dress, and I'm like, oh, where did Miranda go? Like, what am I gonna do at this dungeon party for the next 5 hours? So I get my bag, and I'm walking around, and I'm trying to find a quiet corner so I can like regroup. And I see my friend Jack, And I know that Jack builds these really elaborate machines for having sex with, but I've never actually seen one. So he's over there, and he's wearing this cowboy hat and these tight leather pants, and he's holding a leather riding crop. And I'm like, oh, he's so hot. And so I go over to him because that seems comforting and safe. But then I get closer, and I see all of these machines, and like his most exciting centerpiece machine is this saddle where he has taken out the middle of it, and in its place, he has put 2 dildos. And so the dildos are going like this. Like, hey, look at me. And then he tells me there's also a Hitachi vibrator in the middle of the saddle, so you can hold on to the middle part of it and ride it and get 3 different kinds of stimulation. I'm like, well, that seems pretty fun, but no, I already did my big bold thing for the weekend. I was up there. It's like, yeah, that was fun to watch. And so we carry on having this perfectly normal conversation, like, you know, how are the kids? How's the weather? Like, where'd you get those shoes? But in between us, as we're doing this, there's the fucking machine going like this. And it's hard not to look down and contemplate that. And so I guess I must look at it one too many times, because he looks at me and he's like, you want to ride it, don't you? I'm like, kinda, but not really. That's a little bit more attention than I want right now. And he's like, okay, that's fine. If you don't want to ride it, that's fine. And so we sit there and we talk, and we watch all of the people walking around the dungeon, and we're talking to our friends. And as time is going on, I can't stop looking at it. Like, it looks really sexy, but I just don't want to be the first person to ride this thing. He can't get anyone to ride it because it's so intimidating. No one wants to be the first one to ride the fucking machine. And so eventually he sees me looking again. He's like, Emily, I know you. Like, we've been to parties before. We've tied each other up a couple of times. But it was always really casual. Because I have the sort of life where I can say that. We'd never slept together or seen each other naked, so we like had this huge... I had a crush on him. I don't know what he was thinking. And so he kind of knew me. He's like, you won't stop looking at it. I know you want to ride it. What can I do to make you comfortable, or what can I do as a deal to get you to ride it? And I look at him, and I'm like, oh, he's so fucking hot. I'm never going to get him. He's way more into machines than he is to women. That's okay. So I look around, and across the room, I see this other person that I've had a crush on for a really long time. She's this beautiful woman with long, flowing black hair and these almond eyes and this creamy dark skin. And I point at her and I say, well, if you can bring her over here and you tie her to me a little bit before, then I'll ride the machine after that. And I think I'm calling his bluff. There is no way Jack is going to go across the room and get the hottest girl in the room to come over and tie her to me. That's never going to happen. Except he says, can you stand here and watch this? And before I can respond, he's walking towards her, and I'm like, shit. And so he goes over there, and they have that conversation, and I'm powerless because I can't leave his machines. And I see them having that conversation where she looks over, and he points at me, and they smile, and they hug, and I'm like, oh, he's going to bring over the woman of my dreams and tie her to me, and then I'm going to have to ride the fucking machine. And so that's what happens. He brings her over. And we say hello, and we introduce ourselves, and I'm like, yeah, I've liked you for a long time. Are you okay? Do you want to get tied to me? And she's like, yeah. And so Jack takes us a little bit away from the machine that's still going like this. And he gets out his rope, and we put our arms around each other, and he ties us together. And I'm with this woman, and she's so beautiful, and she's the woman of my dreams. And her breasts are touching, and she's so soft, and she smells good, and I'm stroking her hair as we're tied together. And Jack kind of sensually tickles us and pets our hair and spanks us a little bit. And it's a beautiful moment, and it's really exciting. But I can't quite get into it because in my peripheral vision, there's still that saddle, and it's still going like this. So he unties us, and I thank her, and then she kind of looks at me, and Jack's kind of looking at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, what can I do to get out of this? Because the introverted part of me is still like, no, I can't do this. But Miranda is still in my head somewhere. Like, she abandoned me during the single creepy guy sharks. But she's still in there. Like, she's still tempting me to get on this machine. And so I look at it, and the introverted part of myself is thinking, no, I'm not going on it. So I make up one more excuse. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of a size queen, but I can't really take that huge dildo up my ass. I don't do anal sex. And I think, it's fine. No. And now I'm not going to have to ride it. He has no more things that he can do. And so I'm talking to the pretty girl, and then I realize she's the bait. She's distracting me because she's looking over at Jack over my head this whole time. And then I look back at him, and he's smiling, and the second dildo has disappeared. Now there's only the one. And I have no more excuses. And so I'm, okay, all right, sure. And so I reach under my scandalously short skirt and I shimmy down my lace panties and I hand them to the beautiful girl because at this point I'm like, sure, I don't really know you, but hold my underpants. And so she smiles because she's excited to see me ride this thing. And Jack explains that there's 3 different parts of the machine and he turns them all off. First, he'll turn on the Hitachi vibrator in the center that'll be on my clit. And then I'll sit down on the vibrator and he'll turn that on and it'll start going like this. And then he'll turn on the saddle. So it starts going like this, bucking like a bronco at a Southwestern bar. So there's 3 levels of weirdness to this machine that I have now gotten myself into. And so he puts on some gloves and he lubes up the dildo and he takes my hand and he tenderly helps me straddle the saddle. And I'm looking at this giant dildo, and I'm like, okay. And I settle down onto it, and I'm kind of getting into it. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. And then he turns on the 3 parts, and I'm like holding on for dear life as I'm going like this. And I start to really get into it. It feels really good. There's a lot of stimulation. It's all of the things that I like. And just as I'm starting to get close to climaxing, I make the fatal mistake of opening my eyes. And there again are all those horny single guys. Except now most of them aren't wearing their pants. And they're doing what you would expect them to be doing, watching a woman ride a fucking machine. And that just takes me out of it. So I look at Jack, and I'm like, this is my only hope. He's still really, really sexy with his big brown eyes and his stupid cowboy hat. And I'm like, I'm never gonna get to fuck him, but I can pretend. So I imagine that this machine I'm on is Jack and I'm riding his cock and it's really good and I'm getting into it and I close my eyes and I'm like, no, I can't stop thinking about the horny guys that are there fapping and watching me. It's like, so I'm thinking, what is the only way that I can actually get off of this machine and still hold whatever small part of my dignity I still have? I'm like, I want Jack to be able to get people to get on this machine, and I don't want to be a failure. So in one of my least proud moments in my life, I totally faked an orgasm for a robot. So I center myself, I'm on this thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the best. Oh yeah, fuck. And then I do all the requisite things to fake an orgasm, and Jack is over here on my shoulder, like touching my shoulder, and he's getting into it, and I look up at him, and he's got that look in his eyes. I'm like, yeah, this is actually a little bit hot. And then he sees that I'm done, and he turns off the 3 parts of the machine, and he holds my shoulders and pats me a little bit, and he's like, thank you, that was beautiful. And then he helps me out of the stirrups of the saddle, and then I realize I still have this giant dildo inside of me. There's no subtle way to dismount from this. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. And I launch off of this thing, and there's like this sickening wet pop of like girl goo and lube, and like it's all sticky and wet, and I'm just like, whatever, there goes my dignity. And so Jack and this beautiful woman hug me, and she gives me back my underpants, and I'm sidle them back up like I need my underpants now that I've done that. And so I spend the rest of the weekend enjoying the party and going to more of the classes. Except now, everywhere I go, people have this moment of like, I know you from something. And I keep hoping they're going to say, you're the girl from that Mobile. And that was really beautiful, and that was a great moment. But no. Every single person would be like, you're the girl from the fucking machine. That was hot. And at first, it's like, no, I don't want to be known for that. I want to be known for my art, not for like fucking the machine. But then I realized I was okay with it. It was fine with me. Miranda had won this time.